Well, it's another edition of the radio show with Mark Lee. We're going to see whether any of our guests show up or not. Otherwise, we'll just have a nice little conversation about things going on in the world. There are a number of things that are happening around the world that folks may be interested in, and all of that. Among them is the fact that the House is supposed to pass the stimulus check on a Tuesday, and then they're saying within 2 to 3 days, folks should be getting their money in terms of a significant portion and all of that. So I think they're saying $1,400 or something like that. And I don't know about the rest of y'all here in the IBM TV world, but yours truly could definitely use it. There is no doubt about that. And I'm thinking that a lot of y'all are feeling the same way also. So that's one of the things that I'm noticing is that I could definitely use it in my bank account in order to take care of some bills and some other things that are going on as well. So I'm thinking a lot of y'all are having similar kind of thoughts that y'all could use that money also at this time of your life and all of that. So that's one of the things that's going on in my world. I know a lot of people are thinking similar kind of thoughts about ways that they could have things happening in their life in that regards. We also had the conclusion last week of two great film festivals. The Hayti Heritage Film Festival was a success. Definitely some great films were shown there, as was the Nevermore Film Festival, where there was a lot of folks watching some great horror films and all of that. So both of those film festivals should be commended for the great work that they did. It was a COVID era, so had to be done virtually versus in person. I know a lot of folks were hoping and wishing that it would have been an in-person event instead of one that it was where it was out of the area. So, like I said, in terms of it being virtual and not in person, but a lot of folks did pay attention to that as well. And then I had some good news on the basketball front. My team did beat Xavier. I wasn't sure they'd be able to pull that off, and they managed to get at least to the 500 mark to close out the regular season. Now they have a very low seed. I think that they're like number 9 or something like that in an 11-team conference. So they will go to Madison Square Garden having to play Georgetown, the number 8 team, and then the winner of that gets to play Villanova. So I don't know whether that's a great reward if you win the game because you got to play the number 1 team. But hey, things can happen crazy in the tournaments and all of that. So we'll see how that goes. But they definitely looked a lot more solid than they have in past games, even though they do have to work on those turnovers. It does seem that they turn over the ball a little bit too much and all of that. So definitely that's one of the things that they're going to have to improve on in the tournament, and if they're going to make any kind of run in the Big East tournament, and they're going to have to make a deep run in order to even think about trying to make it into the NCAA tournament and all of that. But maybe with a victory or two, or maybe even if they can win 4, then they can go ahead and punch their ticket to be there in the NCAA tournament. It's a long shot, but hey, longer shots have happened, and I'm just going to root for it until it doesn't happen. So, like I said, that's what I'm going to be going for, is hoping that they can have that long shot victory and pull it off. So that's what I'm going to be rooting for and hoping for. And we'll see how that plays out in my thoughts and everything. I think Central's going to have to do the same thing, and I am a fan of theirs as well, North Carolina Central, and even some of our teams that often do well, like Duke and Carolina, may have to make deep runs as well if they're going to get either higher seeds or get into the tournament at all. As a matter of fact, there's some speculation that Duke may not make it at all, and that would be the first time since 1995, unless they do some major work on their part as well. So this has been a very unusual year in the world of sports in the sense of what folks have had to do and all of that. So it's definitely been an unusual year in that sense, and we're just going to see how things play out with folks and what goes on in that regard. So we're just going to see how things play out and what happens in that regard, and whether we can get some better things going. I do know folks are loving the weather outside. It's 58 degrees right now, and I think it's supposed to get up to a high of like around the 60s or something like that at some point or another, and they're talking 70s on tomorrow and Wednesday. So definitely some great temperatures that are going on the outside, and a lot of folks are definitely going to be trying to get out and about. It's that kind of weather though that's nice and warm during the daytime, and then drops down to, at least on the chilly side, because I know tonight they're talking freezing 32, even though it was 60 during the course of the day. And I think tomorrow they're saying like lows of 36 or 40. So as we get into spring like weather, and we do head into the spring like temperatures and everything, do stay cautious, do try to stay bundled up, and take whatever precautions you need in order to not catch a cold or anything else like that with the weather the way it is, because this is definitely that flu-like weather, and we're not even talking about the major pandemic that's going on with COVID and everything, but this is just that flu and cold-like weather in the regular sense of the word and all of that. So definitely stay informed and stay alert on that part so that you can see if it's something that you're interested in being part of and all of that. So I do see that I've got one of my guests coming in, so I'm going to bring in Miss Julie Scott, and we're going to have a lovely conversation and everything. So I was just telling folks about the weather here. How are you doing, Miss Scott? And tell folks a little bit about yourself and what you've got going on in your world. And I hope that you are doing well in this weather. I mean, it's been a year that we've been dealing with COVID, and of course, there's all kinds of other things that are going on as well. So I'd love you to tell our folks here at the International Broadcast Media more about yourself and all that you do.
Well, thank you so much for your patience. I had a little bit of a snafu with technology, which is always a crapshoot for me. You never know what you're going to get, right? So, at any rate, I'm Julie Scott. I'm actually a life coach. I'm an author and a speaker. And I live in Palm Springs, California. So I'm in a tank top because it's 80 degrees out. So I feel very fortunate to live here, although I haven't always lived here. I lived in upstate New York growing up in the snow, and my birthday's in February. And I remember never having anyone been able to make it to my house on February 7th because we'd always have like 4 feet of snow. So I remember thinking as a kid, I'm moving. My parents took me to Tampa, Florida once, and I'm like, you mean there's something other than this? So that was the end of that. So I decided I was going to move when I graduated high school, and I did. I moved to California. So at any rate, a little bit about me. I am, like I said, I'm a coach, and I'm on a mission. I have a vision for mature women to learn to trust in themselves, to trust the wisdom of their bodies, and trust in their worth, so that they can free themselves in life to embrace the aging process with ease, optimism, and strength. So that's what I'm about. But actually, how I got to where I'm at is by, I also call myself a recovering people pleaser, because that is something that's, has been a big part of, who I am and my growth and my journey. And I know that was one of the things that you were interested in talking about today, because as it's not just women that suffer from people pleasing, it's men too. So I love helping women set themselves free of the people pleasing, because the thing is that you can't really change anything about yourself or in your life unless you make yourself a priority. And as people pleasers, it's very difficult for us to put ourselves first in life, because our value unfortunately comes from what we think we can do for others, and not so much about our own value, just in being a human being who is valuable. So
Yeah,
that's a
and one of the
jumping
things
off
that
point.
as you were saying that, I was thinking about a couple of questions that I had for you along those lines. And yes, I was glad that you were able to come on this show and everything. But I know in the arts world and in the entertainment world, and I would argue even in the entrepreneurial world, a lot of times we self-sabotage ourselves. And part of that may be that people pleasing, because we're afraid that we're not good enough for whatever the job is and things of that nature. I've had friends of mine that have been musicians that have not necessarily gone for a gig or tried for the gig because they didn't feel that they would get it and things of that nature. So I was just wondering, do you think that that is part of the, even though that's not really pleasing people because you're kind of like not pleasing yourself, but are the two somewhat related and everything? Because a lot of times I do think that self-sabotage can be part of what people pleasers do as well.
Well, I think it can be a number of things. I know that like for myself, I noticed like for example, just moving out here from, I lived in Los Angeles for 33 years. I've lived here 3 years. And I remember thinking this is when I was already on my self-help journey and figuring some things out, starting to get some things right and starting to move forward in my life where I wanted to go. But I remember I wanted to work from home. I wanted to be, I wanted to not be under the watchful eye of a manager or boss. I wanted to kind of have that feeling of working for myself. I wanted to live in a house like the one I'm living in. I wanted to live in an area. And it was like, I got here and I got all the things that I wanted. And for the first, I would say, month, I remember thinking, should I do the dishes? Should I do the laundry? Should I play with the cats? Or should I do my job? And it was like, I was just shooting myself in the foot because I think it had to do with, yes, I didn't think that I was worth having all that I wanted, right? Because it was one of the first times in my life that I really, truly, genuinely have had so many things that I wanted all at the same time. It's like I got to, work the way I wanted to. I got to live where I wanted to. I was in a good relationship. I'm still in that relationship, but it's just like that, getting everything that you want. Sometimes I think we all have, well, I know for myself, I have a certain level of goodness that I allow myself to have before I'm like, when's the other shoe going to drop? It's like, so I think it is tied to me not thinking I'm worth it. Absolutely. And so I think it does absolutely tie into being the people pleaser, because there's so many things about being a people pleaser. I mean, it's not just not being able to say no. It's about agreeing with other people. It's about going along. It's about pretending that you're happy. It's about apologizing when you're not at fault. I mean, it's so much bigger than just not being able to say no. It's really something that I think so many people suffer with, and I think because they associate it with something negative, they don't want to own up to it, so they don't want to look at it, and so it continues to run their life.
And along those same lines, do you think it sometimes plays into the facts when folks are letting other people dictate how they live their lives? I know you said that you're in a good relationship and things of that nature and everything, but I know that I am the quintessential, well, not the quintessential, because that could be worse, but I can sometimes be an Oscar in life and things of that nature. And I know that sometimes when friends come over, then they automatically want to go into the cleanup mode. And I'm used to my own lifestyle, my own junkiness and things of that nature. And I sometimes wonder if they're not trying to, like, force me into being something different than I am and everything. And I think that that can also play into people pleasing as well. But I was just wondering your thoughts, because I do think that sometimes people that are people pleasers also sometimes want to control other people's attitudes and other people's kind of like that Felix Oscar odd couple kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that I certainly was and I still notice this coming up for me. I call it a fixer. You're a
Uh-huh.
fixer. You want to
Right.
fix other people. And I think that what the core of that is not wanting to look at your own stuff. So you're busy taking care of everybody else's stuff. It's like, I have all kinds of ideas for you, but I'm not going to work on myself. Right. So it's
Right.
kind of a way to avoid, working on yourself. But yeah, I mean, fixer. And, that's really one of the things that I've been intentionally trying to let go of, because the message that you're giving to people when you're constantly trying to fix them is that you're not capable. You're not capable of doing this on your own. So I need to help you with this. And it's such a disservice to do to someone, because everyone has infinite ability and possibility if they step into that, right? If they decide they want to explore what their potential is, I think we all
Right.
can surprise ourselves, right? With what we can achieve. And especially with kids, it's like you've really got to pay attention to whether you're enabling a kid to, lean on you for too long and not really spread their wings and see what they can do. It's like you want to give the power back to them and say, you can do this, and you may not do it my way, because there's 100 ways to do the same thing. Right. So it's an interesting dynamic. That fixer mentality it's a rabbit hole I've been in. It's not a fun one.
Total rabbit hole, and definitely folks are oftentimes amazed by it and everything. And I do find that a lot of times, um, even in relationships, you sometimes get into that fixing mentality. Because I was also going to explore that as well. Because I know a lot of times if you're getting into relationships and things of that nature, I think that a lot of times folks want to fix whatever they think the bad part is of that person. Like if they think the person is overly lazy, not ambitious enough, whatever they think that the person is not doing, then they try to fix that person. I think that a lot of times we all have that capability, and maybe it's something that we shouldn't be doing, but we have that thought that we need to fix everybody in our life and try to create them in an image of what we think is perfect for us. And a lot of times it's not really perfect for us or them. But I was just wondering if you could talk about that and the way that it
Oh,
plays into relationships as well.
can I talk about that? Oh my God. Okay, I'm divorced. I'm in my second fairy tale. We've given each other toe rings, so we haven't gotten married yet, but we've been together for like 12 years. But um, I know without a doubt that and again, so many women that I've worked with as a coach look at their partner or a potential partner, let's say, and they're like, he's great, but I can make him better.
Uh-huh.
And that is like such a trap to get into, because the thing is that, or vice versa, men wanting to change the woman in their life, or if you're a man with a man or a woman with a woman, I don't really care what you do. But the
Right.
thing is that there's no cheese down that tube. Right? If you read that book, but that's such a great book. But someone stole my cheese. But
Right.
you
I'm
know,
familiar with the book, but I haven't
yeah,
read it,
yeah.
but I'm familiar with it.
It's such a great book. It's really short, but it's a good one. But the idea that you have a better idea for what could potentially be better for them, or better for them with you, right? I think it's important to ask for what you want in a
Right.
relationship, 100%. But when you're set out to change your partner, it makes everything in your relationship go south, because your focus is all on your partner. It's not it's and everything about them that bothers you gets magnified, because you're focusing, just like whatever you focus on grows, right? So it's like you're focusing on, oh, it's like he never takes out the trash, and you
Right.
ask him to take out and he still doesn't take out the trash, and it's just like, why won't he? If he would just take out the trash, it's like, I guarantee even if he took out the trash, you'd find something else, because you're focused on what you don't like about your partner, right? And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to me still, but what I find is whenever I'm getting anxious or upset with my partner right now, with Paul, I realize, because of the years that I've been working on myself, it's like I realize the reason why I'm feeling frustrated is because I'm focused on him. And we're not taught this, to focus on ourselves, right? Because it's selfish or self-centered, right? But it's like we're all responsible for our own happiness 100%, right? Nobody can make you happy. I can't make you happy or anyone happy. I can only make me happy, right? So
Right.
it's like keeping the focus on myself has opened up new doors to happiness for myself. And when I can focus on myself, I can work on the things that I need to work on, and in turn inspire my partner to be the best that he can be without trying to fix him anymore. So I rise up, and everyone who's near me rises up too, right? It's the same idea in partnership, but we just don't see that. But it took me a while to what I did, just so you know, I'm a journaler. I do journal. I don't know if you journal at all, but I journal. I haven't
Yes.
always, but I do now. But I can distinctly remember in this relationship where I made the decision that I am not going to create my old marriage with this guy, right? And I remember we're standing in the kitchen, and we were getting into an argument, the same argument we'd had a few times. And all of a sudden it just hit me. I'm like, wait, it's like, this isn't working. It's never worked before. I need to just walk out of the room. So I walked out of the room, and I went into my bedroom. I grabbed my journal, and I just started writing. I was like, writing, and I'm shredding through the pages, even just writing. And then eventually I calmed down, and I started calming down and writing how I was feeling and writing what was coming out of me. And before I knew it, it's like I actually shifted out of that anger, and I felt calm again. Right. And then I went back and I read some of the things I was reading. And it's like so much of what triggers us and other
Hmm.
people is
Hmm.
stuff about us that bothers us. Like somebody, if someone's outspoken and you're not, it's because you would like to use your voice more, or whatever that
Right.
is, right? It's
Yeah.
always a reflection of something about yourself that you'd either like to change or that you're unhappy with yourself. So that worked wonders for me to be able to create so much of a stronger connection with Paul, and being able to um, share how I was feeling without making it about him. Because,
Right.
when we're in an argument, we say, you made me feel, it's like, no, I chose to feel XYZ based on what you just said. Or, you know what I mean? So it's a
No,
different way of pulling back from,
no, definitely. I understand what you're saying. And one of the things I was curious about, there was actually a couple of things I was curious about, was one, do you think that sometimes that the part of the people pleasing can also be getting into things that you're not necessarily interested in as part of the people pleasing journey. I'm thinking of like people that might not necessarily be the biggest, and I'll just use California as an example since you're in California. They might not be the biggest Laker fan, but they're going to try to make themselves the biggest Laker fan or the biggest football fan with your football teams out there and everything. But they really have no interest whatsoever
oh,
in sports, but they're trying to become involved in that because that's what their significant other is involved in, or they might decide that they want to be the most outgoing or the most dancing person in the world because their person that they're involved with is a party person that likes to go to the bars and the clubs and things of that nature. So is that part of the people pleasing that you're talking about, where you basically try to create yourself in the image of what you think your partner is looking for, not necessarily in the, and that night not even be what they're looking for. They're probably looking for something a little bit different than themselves. They don't want a carbon copy of themselves, but you're already thinking in the people pleasing mindset that they want to create a partner version of themselves. So, like I said, if it's a man female relationship, a female version of themselves.
yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, when I was with my ex-husband, he was heavily into boxing, which I couldn't care less about, right? But I mean, I did all I could to like learn about it. I mean, that was back when Holyfield and Mike Tyson bit his ear off and all that. I mean, it was quite a few years ago, but I mean, I got involved in boxing because he was involved in boxing, and so I wanted to show him that I was, interested in what he was interested in. He also had two children from a previous marriage. I wanted to prove to him what a great stepmom I could be, what a great mother I could be, right? And I continued to try and morph into what I thought he wanted me to be. But what I forgot about is he fell for the girl that he met at the bowling alley, which is where we
Yeah.
met. I mean, he fell for me at the bowling alley and just being myself. But I think people pleasers forget that, you're enough. You're enough just as you are right now. And it's like, you don't need to change anymore. Because the thing is that when you do that, I just remember feeling so lost in my life and so weak and insecure and scared of losing. When you're not being your authentic self, you're so afraid of losing what you perceive that you have, and it's just such a, but you're right. It's absolutely, you lose yourself in the other person by trying to become what you think they want you to be, when in fact I found they just want who you are, for you to be your authentic self. Because I mean, who wants to just be? I mean, it would be a total drag for me to be with someone just like me. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
it
would
might
make
be
no
fun at first, and then I'd be like, get out of here. Okay.
exactly too much like yourself and everything. And I can definitely understand where that might not be a great thing. I do remember one of my previous guests on one of my shows who was actually a recovering and has written a book about it, a recovering sex addict. And some of the same things that they were talking about is some of the same things that you're talking about, because that people pleasing led them into their addiction. And they are now in a very successful marriage and actually live out in California as well. And they're actually very much involved successfully in the entertainment field as a actress and things of that nature. But they did. I remember in our interview them talking about how that people pleasing was part of what got them into trying to like have this addiction. And like I said, they said it could have been any of a number of addictions, but that was part of the people pleasing, was that they had this sex addiction and everything. So definitely, I think that that can also play a problem, and also the jobs, because I noticed even in your own bio you talked about the job and being in a job that you didn't like. And I think that in my thoughts and everything, I think a lot of times people pleasers stay in jobs that they don't like because they think that that's the only way that they're going to survive. They think that that's the job
Nothing else.
that
Yeah.
the society wants them to have, a number of other things. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story with the job and everything, and how that even played into your discovering your people pleasing, and how that was going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to share something too that in my own journey of figuring this out, I just want to share this because I think it's so powerful, and then I'll touch on the job. But I realized because I wrote a book on my own journey. I self-published it in 2019 about my own journey, and I realized that as children, when you think about it, our parents get us to do things that we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do, whether it's your homework, eating lima beans, eating cube steak, like my mother used to make, or salmon patties. I mean, whatever it was, getting you to do things that you don't want to do. And when you do them, or if you don't do them, you're punished, or whatever that is, whatever that looks like. Or if you do them, you're rewarded. So it kind of sets you up to start doing things that you don't really, and I'm not blaming my parents. I'm not blaming any parents. I think I really believe that everyone's doing the best that they can with what they've got to work with, right? So, but it kind of does set up a people pleaser pathway, right? Of doing, you learn, if I do what you want me to do, then I get love. I
Mm-hmm.
get to belong, right? I mean, those are powerful things to learn in your formative years. And so I think that's kind of where it started, is back then. And I was the youngest of four. And so, always the fourth kid, you're kind of like an afterthought. Not that my parents didn't love me, but I mean, they're like, come on, you got four kids. You don't have time to, play around. But back to my job, I absolutely know that the people pleasing kept me stuck in jobs where I wasn't getting paid as much. I wouldn't ask for what I wanted. I didn't ask for a raise. I watched other people get promoted when I knew I was deserving, and I let it go by. I didn't put myself up for a promotion because I didn't think that I was, worthy of that job or the promotion or good enough for it. So I know I stayed at my last job my last job was probably one of the best jobs that I had. So towards the end, I was already on my journey, but I certainly have stayed in jobs where I told myself, well, what if I can't find something better? Or what if I can't make as much money? Or what if I, you know, it's just that the fear of not being chosen again for a job. I mean, again, I worked all this time to get these people to like me here. And if I have to start all over, nobody's going to like me. I have to make all those people like me over there, and people pleasing, it really does keep you so stuck in life. And I'm so glad that I figured it out. And again, I'm not perfect, because I still find myself, I'm an overgiver. I mean, I give a lot more than I probably receive in a lot of ways, but I'm at least more aware of it.
Right.
And I see it quicker, and I catch myself a little bit faster. So yeah, that's definitely played into my job
Yeah.
for sure.
No, and as you were saying that, I was thinking about even in my own situation. I know that and that's kind of what I was talking about when I was talking about self sabotage, because I know that I have not gone for jobs, and then the person has got the job. I felt that I could have done as good, if not a better job than they did, but I would talk myself out of it. So even though you're people pleasing, you sometimes are not pleasing yourself and everything. Because I know that there have been a number of times that the job might come around, even in a company that I'm working with, like a cultural arts company or something like that, to be management like level, and you would keep talking to yourself about, like, I can go for that job, I can apply for that job, and usually by the time you finally talk yourself into it, if you ever talk yourself into it, the job has already been either filled or the application process is over, and they're already in the process of moving on with whoever they're going to pick. So I think that oftentimes happens in corporate America. I was wondering if you see that quite often with your clients.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they don't even know that they're doing it to themselves. So much of this whole people pleasing is part of our subconscious, right? And our subconscious, which runs like 95% of the show for us, like all day long, because, once you learn how to drive a car, you shut off, you don't even think about it. Once you learn to brush your teeth, tie your shoes, whatever, those all go into the Rolodex of your subconscious that you don't even have to think about. And beliefs are stored in there too, and they are what drive our behaviors, right? So it's like, if you believe that maybe you're not the sharpest tool in the shed, maybe you believe you're not smart, maybe you don't believe that you have enough creativity or leadership skills, then those are the kinds of things that even though you're not aware of it, they drive your behavior. So
Hmm.
whenever you're feeling, and I know now that when I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, that's usually something I need to go after, because it's triggering a belief that I have about what I can't do, so that I can challenge it, uncover it, and realize, okay, I can do this. And I got to share one with you because it's such a great story. Because
Yes, please.
I struggled years with body image too. Like
Mhm.
I had an old boyfriend. It was my very first boyfriend. He told me I had a big butt, and that was the end of it for me. This is way back before big butts were in, because they're definitely in now. But when I was 18 or 17 or even 16, he would tell me, he even made a song around it. Julie's got a big old butt. I said, what? I mean, so I created this, this stigma that I had around my body, right? About that, that I was fat. That I was, because I'm 5'11", I'm not short, I'm a big girl, and I've had a lot of, people say, well, you're a big girl. And that to me says I'm fat, right? So that was what I heard and what I thought about myself for years and years. So right before I turned 50 years old, I was already on this journey of rediscovering myself. I'm 55 now. And when I actually opted to enter into a bikini competition, like a bodybuilding bikini competition,
Mhm.
right after I turned 50 years old, to kind of give 50 the middle finger, basically.
Right.
So, and that was something that, just considering that, I remember that the way my stomach felt, it was just churning. I mean, it was like worse than butterflies. I mean, I felt sick to my stomach just thinking about doing this bikini competition. That's why I knew I had to do it, because it's like facing your biggest fear, your most negative belief you have about yourself. It was one of the most empowering things I've ever done on this journey that I've been on, to actually do that bikini and I didn't invite anybody. I didn't do it for anybody else but for myself. I mean, my boyfriend was there, and I think my sister was there, and that's it. I mean, two people were in the audience, and it's like I went and did that. And yeah, it was life changing in the sense that i I dug up a belief I had about myself and faced it down. And after that, I felt like, wow, there's pretty much nothing I can't do at this point. I mean, of course, in that moment, I've had weaker moments since then, but that was a pretty powerful thing for me to stare down a big belief I had about myself. So
No, that sounds like a great story and a great way to empower yourself, and definitely something that more people need to do on a regular basis. I know that sometimes we oftentimes are afraid to take on those challenges the way that you took on that challenge and everything. And I'm oftentimes fascinated, even sometimes in this modern era and everything. And I'm actually in that 50 club as well, 58, about to be 59 in July of this year and everything. And I know that I've been that. For whatever reasons, that perpetual single person and everything. But I know that as I've gotten older, I've dated different women of different age ranges, but mostly around the same age range, like the 40s and 50s. And a lot of them are divorcees, or they're women that have kids and everything. And I oftentimes find it fascinating the way that I would argue that they add the people pleasing into their relationship abilities as well, because a lot of times they want to make sure that you are comfortable with the kids, and I have no problem with that. But sometimes I think that you need to be comfortable with the person before you become comfortable with the whole family and everything. That's just kind of my attitude. But I do think that sometimes folks are ready to rush you into that whole family dynamic and things of that nature. And then you also have sometimes where they're wanting to do that creation of how they feel you should be, whether that's that ideal house, and I actually live in an apartment, or that ideal car, or that ideal job, or whatever their ideals are that they sometimes have already got in their mindset because of sign of the fairy tale image that a lot of folks have in their life. And I think that that even goes on even after the divorce. I've got a friend of mine that is a grandmother in her 40s and everything, because she had her kids relatively young. I think she has four kids total, and I think she's got like 4 or 5 grandkids if I'm doing the math correctly and everything. But I do sometimes think that she's not willing to get into the relationship because she's afraid of what they may think of that whole dynamic of the family and everything. But I was just wondering your thoughts, because I think that sometimes you need to be comfortable in yourself and also create the relationship with the person that you're creating the relationship with before you create the relationship with the entire family. Not that family isn't important, because I'm very close to my own family, but I think that you need to like do it step by step.
Well, I think that to your point, I think that a lot of people pleasers make decision by committee, right? It's
Right.
like they they want to make sure they have other people buying into their decisions so that they don't have to take 100% responsibility for it. That's part of it. And also because they don't trust themselves because they're not confident. You know, trust is the basis of confidence, and people pleasers certainly are not confident people. So I think that that's probably what's going on. It's like people pleasers are famous for just that, making sure their family is happy with this potential relationship before they'll allow themselves to be in it, rather than using their voice and speaking up and saying, hey, this guy is somebody who I feel is going to be a part of my life moving forward, and I certainly hope I have your support, and if not, then that's unfortunate, but I'm still going to be moving forward with this relationship. And it's like, it's, if you for years though been cowering and coddling other people in this people pleaser mindset, it's like I said, you're so unaware that that's the dynamic that's shaping and creating your reality, and it's difficult to. It's not like somebody can tell you that you're a people pleaser. You have to discover it for yourself. You have to reach a point in your life where you're like, I mean, kind of like I did in my mid 40s or early 40s. I was just like, I looked around my life and I'm like, how did I get here? I feel like, I was just unhappy in every area of my life, but from the outside, I looked like I had it going on and everybody thought everything was perfect for me, but it's like, it wasn't. I was very unhappy, very lost in my life because I was giving away my power to everybody around me to decide what happened in my life, and it's a really tricky thing to discover. And I give you kudos for recognizing that you have some of it in your life, because that's awareness is the mother of change, right? If you're aware of it, then you can start making changes in that direction of saying, okay, it's like, I know that this is my typical, what I do, what I think,
Right.
how I feel, how can I shift this to empower myself more? It's a process.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree that process is very important. I was wondering how much do you think society plays a role in the whole people pleasing situation? I'm thinking you mentioned definitely family and the way that a lot of times we were rewarded for, eating those lima beans or whatever it is that your parents wanted you to eat and everything. But I would argue that it is also encouraged in our school environments, in our church environments, if you're of a religious nature and things
Hmm.
of that nature. So I was just wondering, how much do you think that institutions, whether that's school or church or in a number of other institutions that are out there, play a part in the creation of these people pleasing modules and mindsets?
Great question. I think that it absolutely does. I would say culture as a whole, and I can again only speak to the female experience. It's
Right.
like there's so much pressure, to be a certain way, whether it's in a relationship, physically, how to look or how to be. Absolutely, and I think that it's just added pressure that keeps us stuck, that keeps us in place. And because really to step out of that people pleaser mindset, you have to muster up some courage, because especially when you first set out on it, because the people around you are going to really resist it. They're going to be like, wait, you've always had Thanksgiving dinner at your house every year. It's like, yeah, but I'm a nervous wreck for months before and after because of all of that. So I don't want to do Thanksgiving dinner at my house anymore. And they're all going to be like, what's going on with you? They're going to give you lots of resistance. I mean, the same thing we get in culture is we try and change anything in culture around, you see the pushback, right? It's like people don't like change in any way, but certainly people pleaser mindset is in society, in institutions, to keep people in place, to keep people managed, to keep people quiet, right? So I think there's that. It comes from every direction, but it's like, it's not that it's happening to us, right? It's like we are sending out the energy as people pleasers, and it comes back to us that way. It's but because of the way that we put ourselves out in the world that we get that back, and it is all based on what we believe we're worthy of, right? So it's like it's a
Yeah.
self-perpetuating thing.
Yeah, definitely a self-perpetuating thing. And I was wondering, oh, you just mentioned to some degree, but it probably doesn't help the kind of images that are put out there on TV and movies and things of that nature, where a lot of times they are still putting out there the image of the for you ladies and everything, the image of the Barbie, the image of the Bo
Yeah.
Derek 10 and things of that nature. And yes, I did just kind of date myself, but that image is still out there, even if it's one of the Kardashians and everything, but it's still the same concept and everything. So how much do you feel that that plays into it as well? The fact that we're still out there, even in the images, a lot of times that folks claim that they're looking for and everything. So I do think that even on the guy front, a lot of times you will find guys that are saying that they're looking for that, you know, the perfect 10 that is also the mommy um, Susie housekeeper or something along
Susie
those lines.
Homemaker, Susie
Yes,
Homemaker.
yes.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, one of my pet peeves is the whole notion that men get distinguished while women get old.
Mm,
I mean, I mean, you think about how many movies have you seen, like an older Clint Eastwood with a young, actress as his
right,
love interest. It's like, why not have an age appropriate partner for him? I think that, this is one of the things that I'm like, started with. I'm passionate about, flipping that script on, that once we're 50, 60 and beyond, we have no value, no beauty, no sensuality or sexuality or whatever. It's like that's completely wrong. I mean, and it's something that the thing is that I believe we as women need to step up and flip the script ourselves and not buy into what society is telling us. Same for men. I mean, it's like it's not just about how you look, it's about who you are on
right.
the inside. I mean, because you know what I'm talking about. You meet somebody and maybe they're not the fittest or the prettiest, but they have this personality and this light in them,
Mhm.
and they start talking and they're just magnetic, and everyone wants to know them and talk to them and be around them because their energy is just scrumptious. That's what I'm
Right.
talking about. I believe we all have the ability to light that flame inside of us, at any age, and go after whatever you want at any age in your life, and no matter where you are. I mean, I know there's limitations where, I mean, I feel so fortunate that I live in the States, and have the opportunities that I have, of course. But I really believe that's that state of mind. It's like, if you believe it's possible. I think there's so much we get sucked into. I even used to think this. It's like when something was going wrong, I'd be like, what's the worst thing that can happen? It's like that's what I used to think. Now I think, what's the best thing that can happen? Because it's like just that little shift in one word opens up the possibilities rather than closing it down and taking it to the grave. Right. I'm sorry, I probably got off topic there, but
No, no, you
I'm
made a lot of
passionate
sense, and
about
I was
that.
no, I was actually enjoying where you were going with that, and I definitely agree with you that a lot of times that is what happens. Do you feel that sometimes it happens um, differently within cultures? I was wondering, do you think that some cultures are more people pleasing than others? I'm thinking like I live in an apartment complex that's got a large or decent sized Hispanic population, and I know that there's a decent size around the community. African American population as well as a number of other populations. But I do sometimes think that, like, when I think of the Hispanic population or even the Asian population, that they sometimes can be even more people pleasers than some of our other societies. So I was wondering, do you think that there are cultural things that go into it as well?
Probably, and I can't say that I'm well versed on this, but just my own experiences, like you. I mean, I have friends in other, whether they be Asian or Latino or whatever. I've certainly seen. I mean, I think it has to do also with the family dynamic,
Right.
because the mother maybe is a travel agent for guilt trips. So who really the pressure to do what the family expects you to do, I think is more prevalent in other cultures, certainly. And I think it does perpetuate more of that people pleaser mindset, for, you're looking for the approval of your parents. Maybe it's a financial dependency thing too, that also, I mean, if you're financially dependent on someone, or if someone is financially dependent on you, I mean, you're intertwined in a deeper way that it's harder to honor your own and create boundaries for yourself, and to say no, because there's so much more tied into it. I still think it is possible to create those boundaries and create some space for yourself, but absolutely, that's a great observation. I think that it is more common in other cultures, but I mean, I have to say though, it was very strong in my family, and I don't, I obviously I'm not Asian or Latino, but it certainly was something strong in my family. But again, I had to go back and find the threads of those beliefs, where they came from, and how I came up with thinking that I wasn't worth you know, I mean, I just remember thinking, it's like I felt like I just kind of was adrift in my own life, and just taking whatever came next, just doing what was assumed I should do next. I went to high school, I went to college, I got married, I bought a house, we got, he had 2 kids, we got a dog. I mean, it's just like that process that I just was sucked into, because that's what everyone expected you to do. And it's like, I never really stopped to say, hey, is this really what I want? It's really more about making my parents happy, or making my sisters happy, or making my employer happy, or whatever that is. I mean,
Yeah, definitely. Tell us about the book. I was actually going to put it on the ticker so that folks can watch it if they're watching it on replay, or if watching
oh,
it
thank
now.
you.
Yeah, so tell us about the book and how the book came about, and a little bit about the history of the book.
Yeah, the book is really about my journey in my life, and it's funny because I pick it up every once in a while, and I'll flip through some of the chapters, and I wrote it in the tail end of 2000, and I started it in 2018 and finished it in 2019, and it got published in 2019, and it's just like, looking back at it now, I see how much I've grown since just then. So that's good. I mean, that's encouraging, and a win without a doubt. But I always felt like I wanted to tell my story. In fact, I wanted to have a podcast. In fact, I started with a podcast for like a minute, and then I scared myself off of the technology. So I ran away from that. And then I kept thinking I wanted to share my story in other ways. And a fellow coach of mine, had a writing group, which was 4 women, 5 women total. And so you had to pay money to be a part of this group to write this book. And I just, looking at that, I thought, if I'm going to do it, that will make me do it. Because it's almost like, if you're going to go to the gym, you pay a trainer, you show up, right?
Yeah.
If you're paying for something, you have a stake in it. And so you're going to show up. So I did that. And I paid to be a part of this group. And it was one of the most eye-opening, taking a magnifying glass to your life is no joke. I mean, it was really an emotional roller coaster of good and bad, but so rewarding. But I really just chronicled, like, the first half of it is based on, well, the name of it is called This Time It's About You. Because it was really based on my awakening in my life. And the first half of the book is based on chronologically, from my childhood all the way up until my awakening in my late 30s, early 40s, and all about uncovering all of my beliefs, of all of my no, I can't beliefs that I had about myself. And the second half is really just all of and it's not in chronological order as much as the first half, but it's more about the ahas and the awakenings and the ideas and, the rewritten beliefs. So the second half is, yes, I can. so half of it is no, I can't. And the other half is yes, I can. And it was one of the most powerful, freeing experiences of my life to put that to paper, and scary as well. I mean, because I put a lot of really deep, intimate things about myself. And I just remember thinking, my mother's going to read this.
What were some of the most surprising things in the book that surprised even you? I know a lot of times when we're doing self-examination, whether that's in the book form or in the journaling form or in a number of other forms, there are things that surprise us on a regular basis. So as you were doing the book, and what were some of the things that surprised you then, and what are some of the things that have surprised you about your life now?
Oh, that's a big question. About the book, what surprised me the most? I think, uh, well, I think probably one of the most surprising things was how, because I was brought up in a Christian home, in fact, Baptist. And I just want to preface this by saying, if that's your jam, that's your jam. That's fine. But
Right.
I was brought up with that, and I found it to be very suffocating and limiting, and it just didn't make me feel good about myself. I don't like the idea that I was born a sinner. I just don't like that feeling. And through my own journey, I discovered my own, because I walked away from my religion. When I left home to go to college, really, because that was the first time I wasn't under my parents' watchful eye, and I wasn't required to go to church or prayer meeting or be in the choir or go to Baptist Bible camp or whatever that was that I was doing. And I shunned it for many years. And then I just remember feeling really empty. Like, even though I had a lot of good things going in my life, I didn't feel that deep sense of fulfillment or belonging or connection, I think, is really probably the better word for it. And then I started learning about spirituality, which I didn't really know anything about. I thought, because I thought that was religion, and if that's what it was, I didn't want anything to do with it. And so really, I think the most surprising thing was how, I mean, I once I discovered my own spirituality, I literally felt like I had found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like I wanted to shout from the mountaintops that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am unconditionally loved,
Hmm.
and not by any person, but by, I call it, the universe. And
Right.
to be able to tap into that feeling whenever I want, and learning to do that through a meditation practice, or whenever I exercise and whatever, I'm always able to drop into that, and just, I always come away just feeling energized and excited and hopeful. And I mean, that is probably one of the most surprising things. I mean, I get chills right now just talk about it, because it's one of the most powerful shifts I've made in my life, is to discover and embrace my own spirituality. I think that is massive. I mean, and I honestly believe that if everyone, because it's really about learning self-love, right?
Right.
It's like knowing that you belong unconditionally, knowing that you're loved unconditionally. It's like, if we all could feel that and know that and embrace that, we would solve every problem in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, there would be no war, there'd be no, there'd be no starvation, everybody would share and love each other, and it would just be this, it'd be like the 70s all over again, but like worldwide.
Right.
And but I mean, I think that's probably one of the most surprising things, was how big of a deal that was for me. And I just remember writing that chapter in the book, just bawling, just crying and crying and crying. But it was really powerful.
And it seems like more and more of us are doing that kind of thing where it's getting that connection of the spirituality and not so much of a certain religion and things of that nature. I know that one of my past guests on one of these podcasts was a gentleman that I also met from Potted as well. And he was actually saying that he had actually had the pleasure of actually going to the other side. And the way he described the other side was almost the way you're describing it now and everything, because he was talking about what he saw was a place that had um, all the kinds of religions all up there. So it wasn't any of this my way or the highway kind of attitude. It was definitely,
Yeah.
Muslims were up there, Buddhists were up there, Christians were up there, but they were all in this heavenly space. Now, they might have had separate territories within heaven that they were in. I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that, but they were all in the same place and everything of that nature. So it was really interesting when I had that conversation with Brent. I think that was last week actually. But
Oh,
and then there's a friend of mine, Brian Schulman, who does this thing called Voice Your Vibes, and he gets people. He's actually a LinkedIn influencer, but he gets people from around the world on his thing that he does on one is on Wednesday and the other is on Saturday. But it's just people basically shouting out positive things in their life. That's kind of what he does on his Wednesday and Saturday
I love that.
LinkedIn shout out. So people will come on and they'll come from all over. And some of them have been in various bad situations, like abusive situations and
Mm,
things of that nature. But this is about them shouting out the positivity and all of that. So he does that every Wednesday and Saturday. I think it's shout out Saturday. And I think it's What's Up Wednesdays or something along those lines. But that's where we're seeing this kind of social media for its bad aspects can be a positive. So I was
yeah.
wondering, in the sense of how are you finding social media to be either a good tool or a bad tool when it comes to people pleasing?
I think it's been, I mean, interestingly enough, all of last year, because I went into I've been coaching for 5 years, and I went into it full time beginning of 2020. Perfect year to go into business, right?
Yes.
Actually, it was a good year for me, anyways. But uh, I know for the last 10 months, I was good about putting content up on all different platforms, and I think that it's a good space to share information, educate people. But I think that the to shift somebody out of people pleasing, I think because you really have to have an intimate conversation with somebody.
Right.
And I think it's difficult to have intimate conversations in typical social media. However, I have in the past 3 or 4 weeks gotten involved in something that is called Clubhouse. And I don't know if you're familiar with that,
Yes, I'm
but
familiar.
okay. It is the most amazing and the best form of social media, in my opinion, because it invites the real conversations like this, like real conversations. And because there's no video, there's no pictures other than your
Right.
profile picture, you're listening in on people talking about some very intimate subjects, if that's the title for the room. And there's the anonymity of not being able to be seen,
Hmm.
and how it is. You can talk to somebody over the phone and they'll be more apt to cry and share than if you're on a video with them, right?
Yeah.
But it's absolutely one of the strongest places of forming connections with people that I have found yet. So I think there some work can be done to help some fellow people pleasers. Absolutely. I can't say that I haven't. I mean, I have a Facebook community that I've grown to. It's called the Confident Women's Community. And in there, I do share a lot of information, a lot of deep personal information, because I find that I'm sure you know this too, it's like once you share, you make it safe for someone else to share,
Right.
because they
Yes.
hear you and they're like, oh, that's just like me, that feels just like me. And so then gives them courage to share their story too. But I think that it just depends on the platform and the way you're using it. But I think you have to intentionally, when you're creating your content, infuse it with the energy of wanting to help and not necessarily wanting to sell. You know what I mean? I think it's about, I have a sticky note here that I have. I don't know if you can read that, but it's like, how can I help someone today? It's like, that reminds me all the time. It's like why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's like, how can I help someone today? If I
Hmm.
come from that place and that
Right.
energy, then I find that I can make, in fact, an impact on other people's lives by the content that I share and the way that I show up. So I hope that answered the question.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense and everything. What advice do you said you've been doing it now for 5 years? I've got a friend of mine in Ohio that has a podcast called Deep in Roots Health Coaching and all of that. I was trying to
Mhm.
remember the name. That's actually what I was looking up, that Karen Oker has got going on and all of that. So I was just wondering, what is some of the advice that you would give to somebody that is trying to get into this whole concept of coaching? Because like I said, her whole thing is around coaching around food and diet and things of that nature. But what would be some of the advice that you would give to folks, in terms of advice that you might want to give them in terms of being a coach?
Well, I mean, I got into it because when I worked with my first coach, I remember thinking while we were going through the process, I'm like, wait a minute, this is kind of what I feel like I've been doing my whole life, because I've always been one of those people that friends and colleagues, and even family members, cousins, and that would come to for non-judgmental advice, I think is probably the best way to put it. It's like they'd ask me my opinion or what I thought about something, and I would say it in a way that didn't make them feel bad about what they were doing. You know what I mean? So I've always been a good listener. And so when I was going through this process with my coach the first time that I worked with a coach, I realized, I'm like, wow, this is something I think I could do. And I literally looked at myself in the mirror like in the next week or two, and I'm like, I'm a coach. I'm a life
Mm.
coach. Because you don't necessarily have to get certified. I mean, it's not a requirement. It's nice to have some sort of a structure to follow if you want that. But I really think that if you feel called to coach because you really are coming from a place of I want to make an impact, I want to change people's lives, I want to change the world one person at a time. I think that's the right reasons to go into coaching. I think, of course, there is money to be made, but I've found that the more that I keep my eye on what my intention is around it, everything else falls into place. So yeah, I would say if they feel called to it and if they're interested in it, I think the world could definitely use. I mean, just think of how many billions of people are in the world. I mean,
Right.
and the thing is that the people that are attracted to working with me are not going to be attracted to working with you, for example, if you were a coach too, right? I mean, so it's like I really believe the world is an abundant place, and there's plenty to go around for everyone. And it's like if you look at things that way, then that's what shows up in your life. So I have no problem. I share in my group on Facebook with other coaches. I let them come in and we do interviews in my group, because I think the more the merrier, because if one person is impacted and resonates with that conversation from the woman or the man that I'm interviewing in my group, great. Let's change one more life. I mean, who is that hurting? I mean, that's the best thing we could possibly do.
No, I definitely agree with you. That's the best thing to do, and there's definitely needs to have more of that on a regular basis. What is your ideal client in your life right now? So, if you were to say the ideal client that you had, who would that ideal client be that you're looking for?
It's typically me in my rearview mirror. It's like me like 7 years ago or 8 years ago. Someone, usually mature women who are, doubting themselves, feeling lost in their life. And also, too, I do work a lot with women around releasing weight.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, there's one thing to lose weight, but if you lose weight, in my opinion, you can find it again.
You're right.
So if you lose weight, if you release weight, then you have made the agreement with yourself and your body that you no longer need to carry that weight, right? And there's work to be done around that. I believe in intuitive eating. I don't believe in dieting at all. I haven't dieted in years, and I think dieting doesn't work. I mean, I think it just you lose the weight and you gain it back and then some. And that's why it's a $1 billion diet industry, right? So, and again, I yo-yoed up and down with 25 or 30 pounds for years, and then once I figured out how to love myself and to connect with my body, I was able to learn. And I teach this now, intuitive eating for women. Just so there's no forbidden foods. It's just about listening to your body and giving it what it's asking for, but it's not the quick fix. It's like you're not going to lose 40 pounds in 3 months. I mean, you may lose 40 pounds over the course of a year by listening to your body, but then it's never coming back because you've released it. So I'm big into that. I'm big into intuitive movement too, doing things that you enjoy doing. Maybe you don't like lifting weights. Maybe you don't like going for hikes. Well, maybe you like dancing in your kitchen while you make dinner. Do that.
Right.
Do whatever you feel like doing, go swimming or whatever that is, find something that you like to do to move your body just because, and do it because you want to, not because you have to. So I would say my ideal client is a mature woman who is ready to put herself first, to take charge of her life and sail into her 50s, 60s, and 70s with ease and optimism and excitement about what's to come. Because let's face it, we're an aging society, right? I feel like I'm probably going to live to be, my mom's 85 years old right now, and I don't see her slowing down. So I'm thinking I'm even healthier than she was in her life. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to be 90, 95, maybe 100. It's like I just want to feel as good as I can for as long as I can and always be able to pull up my own pants.
No, I'm thoroughly with you on that. I actually sometimes jokingly say that I've set a unattainable goal, but sometimes you need to set unattainable goals just to have the fun of the unattainable goal and all of that. But my dad is like you were describing your mom. He's in his let's see, well, mom is going to be 79 this May, and dad is like around, he'll be 82 this June and everything. So definitely you would never know that looking at him. He's still very much involved with his artwork because he's an artist.
Oh,
Like
that's wonderful.
or fifth career or something like that. But he's been an artist for decades now, but he's definitely still very much involved in that artwork, doing photography and other forms of art and all of that. So he's definitely still very energetic, still running around after my two nephews. I don't have any kids, but I've got two nephews that are about to be, let's see, 12 and 13 in August of this year. But he's still running around with them and going to their soccer matches and different other things that they were doing before COVID and everything. But definitely was involved in a lot of that kind of stuff and definitely has that kind of energy that you're talking about. So I set the unrealistic goal of 200. I figured, hey, nobody's done it since Moses or one of those other biblical characters. And it probably won't happen even with me, but why not set an unrealistic goal? And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I'll just tell the folks up at the spiritual top and everything that I knew wasn't going to happen when I set the goal anyway and everything. But like I said, that's just kind of my joking thing that I tell folks on a
Well,
regular basis that I'm
my
going to go
plan,
for.
my plan is happy, healthy, dead. I think that's possible. I don't buy into the fact that, or to the idea, not a fact, that we decline as we age. I mean, I don't buy into that at all. I mean, I'm healthier than I was in my 30s and my 50s now, and I plan to keep doing what I love to do so that I can be as healthy in my 60s and 70s as 80s as much as I possibly can be, because I really believe that it's if you believe it's possible, then you can make it happen. So it's not about punishing myself. And again, it's like I think it's all about how you look at things and how you perceive things. It's like this is absolutely something that I can do and will do because it's what I want, and it's like I totally deserve it. I mean, so that's I've come such a long way from where I was that yeah, I want to shout from the mountaintops that we do not have to decline as we age. And we certainly are. If we take the wheel of our own life, then look out, you can do just about anything.
Yeah, well, like I said, that's why I'm not a big fan. I mean, I know that they have their reasoning for existence, but I'm not the biggest fan of nursing homes and all of that, particularly those that are not active. I know there are some that are more active than others in the sense of keeping their residents active, but I do know that there are some out there that do not keep their residents active, and those are the ones that I am definitely not a fan of, just because I think that they actually rush people to an end that they don't necessarily need to be rushed to and everything. So I would agree with
Yep.
you that there are those that are out there that are only speeding the process and not
Yeah.
slowing the process.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I am not a fan of in the least bit. Now, I will say that there are some out there that do a good job of, taking their folks out to plays, taking their folks out to the community,
Yeah.
keeping them involved, keeping them active. And those I do not mind as much. But I know me personally, if I can help it, I will not be trying to send my parents to any of those. And of course, it'll be a decision between me and my younger brother. And probably by that time, the nephews would also be playing a part in it. And who knows, maybe even their siblings. Well, dad doesn't have any siblings because he was an only child. But if mom's siblings are still around, they may play a
Right.
role in that conversation as well. But in my mindset, I would rather them be either in my house or me in their house, and us kind of like having that living together kind of situation versus putting them in a nursing home. Now, things that are out of your control happen and you have to put them in those situations. I understand that, but I just know that even here in Durham, North Carolina, where I'm at, there's a young lady. I'm gonna call her young, but she is 103 years old
I
and
love that.
still very vibrant in terms of her talking and all of that. She may not get around as much as she used to, but I want to say as of like even 98 or 99, she was still driving her car and everything along those lines. I know she was driving it definitely late in life. I don't know that if she's driving it right now, but she was
Right.
definitely driving it late. And I think she still can be one of the sassiest talkers that you ever want to meet,
I
even
love
to this
that.
day and
Well,
everything. So,
Southern ladies are some of my
yeah,
favorites.
she could definitely talk junk to you, Miss McLaughlin, anytime that you feel like it, and all of that. So she definitely has that. Speaking of that, is International Women's Day today, and of course,
I
this is
know.
Women's History Month, and all of that. So, who are some of the women of history that have meant a lot to you, and who are some of those that you would consider the people that you admire a lot historically? Even maybe they've gone through similar journeys that you've gone through, or totally different journeys.
It's funny. I was talking about this earlier on when I was talking on Clubhouse. She isn't historical, but it's actually my own mother. And I want to share this because um, when I was 15, my mom she had her tonsils out. So she was 46 years old when I was 15, because like I'm the fourth daughter. So she had me when she was like 31 or something. And um, she had her tonsils out, and they routinely checked the tissue for cancer, right, or whatever, and they found cancer in her tonsils, and then they ran tests, and she had lymphoma. So anywhere you have a lymph gland, she had cancer. So it's basically throughout your whole body. And then they further found that it was in her bone marrow. So she had bone marrow and lymphoma cancer when
Wow.
I was 15. And this is when I lived in upstate New York. And I remember we had to drive her to Buffalo, which was a 3-hour drive one way, to the specialist where she would have chemotherapy. And so for 10 months, we went through this whole process. And I got to tell you, my mother never once bought into the fact that she was sick. She's like, I feel good. I don't know. This doesn't seem right. I feel well. I don't, I'm going to be fine. So we went through this whole chemotherapy thing. I watched, the veins in her hands got massive. I mean, she lost all of her hair. I mean, we'd have to stop several times driving home so she could throw up. I mean, it was really an awful thing to watch her go through. And at the end of the 10 months, we took her back in, and they did bone marrow tests, through her lower back. They drill into and take out bone marrow. And, she said it hurt worse than giving birth. So it was nothing to go through that. And they basically said, well, the chemotherapy is not working. Maybe we can try radiation, but it's so all over her body. We give her 6 months to live. That
Right.
doctors are famous for giving those fun prognoses.
Right.
And again, you have the option to buy into it or not. And my mother was like, you know what? She's like, I've got 4 beautiful daughters, and I have so much to live for. She goes, I am not going to die in 6 months. She goes, it is just not my time to go. But every doctor that we talked to had the same story to tell her. And that was the first time I ever saw my dad, who's like, he's passed away, but he was 6'3" and about 240 pounds. He was a big guy, and, he cried. And to see him cry, I mean, that was one of the scariest times of my life, because he was my rock. He was my dad. I mean, he never cried. It was just like, oh, this is bad. If he's crying, it's bad.
Right.
But I gotta say, my mother never once, not in front of me, ever shed a tear. She never shed a tear. She was always so positive. She always was like, it's not my time to go. Well, she's 85 years old right now. Okay. So
Right.
she obviously survived it. Right. I mean, and she taught me so much about having the will to survive, the will to live, she just has such a excitement for life, such a, I mean, and she had quadruple open heart surgery 2 years ago, and she's still like golfing 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, she's walking I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, so I don't have a historical woman that comes to mind, but my mother has been somebody who I have to say is a very inspirational woman, from the standpoint of how she has such a vigor and zest for life. So
Yeah, it sounds like she's got a great vigor and zest for life and everything. As you were saying that, and you were talking about her and her pride in you and her other 3 daughters and all of that, I was wondering, even when it comes to people pleasing and some of your clients and everything, um, one of the things that we hadn't talked about, and I was just wondering your thoughts about this, is a lot of times society also puts pressure on women to do certain things by certain times. So, there's
oh
always that
yeah.
pressure to be married by before you're in your 30s and all of that. Is that pressure to have the biological clock and to have the kids? And I don't know whether you have any kids or not, but how do you feel about that as well? This kind of like pressure to not just please yourself and to please uh, your partners, but also to please the greater society. Because
Oh,
I think that that
100%.
is still very prevalent in our society, where we've got folks that are, if they see a young woman, I'd argue even in their late 30s or their early 40s, that doesn't have a kid, they're already ready to make them a spinster. And I can say that even the same on the gas front, because I know sometimes folks automatically want to assume that you are something that you're not, just based on the fact that you don't have any kids and all of that. So I was just wondering if you could talk about that part of people pleasing as well.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I think that I don't have any children. It just didn't work out for me. I mean, before I left my husband, I got pregnant, but then I lost them. So I just don't think it was in the cards for me at the time to have children. But absolutely, I think that again, it's about those expectations of us, like like it's everything. Like women are expected to color their hair, but men
Yeah.
aren't, right? So it's like we continue, we perpetuate the cycle of that. We, again, like you had mentioned before, getting married at a certain time, having kids by a certain time. What's an appropriate job? What's an appropriate way to dress? What's an appropriate, what's accepted? I mean, I think that it takes a tremendous amount of courage to be your authentic self, to be unapologetically you. And I
Right.
think that is, but at the same time, nothing that's 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 easy is really worth it. It's always the things that are tougher that you get the most reward out of. So stepping into the fullness of who you truly are and getting to know who you are, what you want, how you feel about, I mean, it comes down to everything. It's like how you feel about everything. It's like whether you sit and you watch the news and you believe everything you hear, or you go and you seek out different information for both sides, maybe of a political story or of whatever it is. And then the third step of that, I think, is really checking in with you. It's like, does that feel right to me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we aren't, I think that that's a way out of people pleasing. It's like when you're feeling uncomfortable, when you're feeling that sick feeling, that you just know something's off. It's like, it's because you're living out of alignment with who you are. And I just want to share this, and I have to go here in about 10 minutes because I got another call, but I think one of the best ways to get yourself out of people pleasing, the very first step, is to get clear on what your values are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever done a values exercise, but if you Google a values exercise, really all it is, it's a long list of all these words that describe different values, whether it's honesty, optimism, strength, trust, power, well, whatever. There's literally 500 words, or at least 300 words on each one of these. And I encourage anyone who's interested in breaking out of people pleasing, get clear on your values first. Go through and circle all the words that resonate with you. And you're probably going to start out with like 50 words, but then you got to hone it down, get it down to 20, then get it down to 10, get it down, try and get it down to 3 to 5 words that really resonate with you around who you are as a person and what you value in life and what it may not be just who you are now, because I think our values kind of change as we get older in
Right.
life. Like what's important to you, like health is one of mine, optimism is another one of mine, balance is another one of mine. So I mean, things like that. So it's like once you get clear on your values, then you can start living your life in alignment with those values. And it's almost like a compass in life. And it's like when you're starting to feel off, when something feels odd, or just, I encourage you to keep that list of values in your wallet. So whenever you're feeling, you just pull it out and look at it. It's like, based on this situation, I'm feeling icky about it for whatever reason. And it's like,
Right.
is it in alignment with my values? And I'll bet you when you're feeling uncomfortable, it's because you're crossing over a line of one of your values that you have in your life. And that to me is a North Star for you to, guide your life. It's like, if you got your values clear, then you can line up your life with it, and you can start dropping away the people pleasing because you have a solid vision for what you want for your life. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I definitely was hearing you and definitely thinking that that's something that I need to do
Yeah.
myself and everything. One of the things I was wondering, and I know you said you got to wrap up and everything, is one of the things I was curious about is I'm of the opinion now, and this may be just my wishful thinking, but I do have like I said, I've got my two nephews, and I've got some friends that have kids that are in those teenage years and the young adult years and things of
Mhm.
that nature. I'm actually of the opinion that this new generation, and I would even argue maybe some of those that are in their 30s and 40s, which is younger than us, but definitely not a new generation, is done a better job of not falling into the trap as much as we did in terms of people pleasing. Now, don't get me wrong, I think they do some people pleasing, but they seem to have a better attitude in the sense of like their attitudes towards society and things of that nature. So they may have some people pleasing qualities, but not as many as we have had in the past. They seem to be more grounded, for lack of a better term, and all of that. I'm thinking about even the way that they treat race relations, the way they treat age differences. Like a lot of times they don't really care about age differences in even their own dating lives and things of that nature. But I was just
Mhm.
wondering your thoughts. Do you feel that this generation that's coming up is doing a better job than, say, the generation that we were part of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it has to do with just being aware of what perpetuates this, cycle in people. And I think parents that are, have the time to focus more on their children rather than being so scattered. And I mean, I think it still happens in certain homes. I think it depends on your situation.
Right.
But I certainly think, like, to your point, there's a lot more awareness about, and there's a lot of things shifting and changing, which I'm so excited about in the world and in our country in particular, things that have been in place for hundreds of years that, you know, as you well know, I mean, it's absolutely, I'm so excited for what's to come for that reason. So I think in a lot of ways, yes, it has helped to break some of the cycles. But I also think too, it's like it's such a personal thing that's based on, I mean, I think from a cultural standpoint, maybe there won't be so much pressure from that standpoint, but we still create these beliefs about ourselves all by ourselves as little kids, just based on something we experience or hear or see and how we interpret it. So there's still work to be done, but absolutely, I have hope for that the younger folks aren't going to be as stifled as you and I have been in our lives.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Do you have any success stories that you can share from your own coaching in this 5 year period that you've had and everything that you would like to share? And then one of the things I always try to get all my guests to do is give a thought of positivity or a word of encouragement that they would like to share with our global audience that is part of the international broadcast media, which, by the way, is kind of like a clubhouse, but in the podcasting world, because not just my show, but also Mind Closet and a number of other shows that we have. You, my friend Zach's Funk Music with Zach, we try to encourage people and do it in this kind of like positive kind of light as what you've been hearing with this interview that I've been doing with you. So it's part of a growing global internet podcast network and
I love
everything.
it.
So
So the first thing you asked me, I forgot what that was.
any success stories that you
Oh
could
yeah, yeah.
share?
Oh, I have quite a few, but I'm trying to think of one in particular. I mean, on my website, I have a whole tab for success stories. But I think probably um, there's a gal I worked with named Linda, who I worked with her actually worked with her twice for 2 6-month periods of time. And when I met her, she was quite a bit overweight, married, 2 kids, working at a job that she was unhappy in. And in the 6 months that we worked together, she started working on getting out of that job because that was something that was so stressful, and she wanted to spend more time with her children and being more not a stay-at-home mom, but she had an idea for a business that she wanted to start. So she started a little budding business, and then we worked together another 6 months. So what I wanted to share with you is the second time we worked together, so she worked on her business first with me, and then she worked on her health with me the second time. And she contacted me not that long ago. I guess it was probably, well, I guess it was like last September, but it seems like not that long ago. But it was last September. She reached out to me and she was just in a tizzy. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, my business is doing better than it's done since I started. I mean, I'm having a banner year. And I'm like, awesome, that's great. And she's like, and my kids are off to college, and they're doing great. And my relationship with my husband is stronger than it's ever been. I mean, we're happy together. And I'm like, what's the problem? And she's like, I don't know, I feel so anxious. And I'm like, why do you think you feel anxious? And she's like, because I don't think I'm used to having so much goodness in my life.
Wow.
And so we talked for probably an hour and a half on the phone, and I walked her through, some processes that she could do. But it's just interesting to me how even the people that have everything together still get that feeling like, oh, do I deserve this? I don't know if I get to have this. It's like that feeling. But I mean, I was just so proud of the work that Linda did and how she really stepped up in her life. She really started asking for what she wanted. She created a new relationship with her husband. She changed jobs, started a business, got her health in order. I mean, she's really just turned her life around. And I didn't do it. She did it. I mean, I was just a guide. I just provided the space for her to be and to talk about the things, and so she could find her own answers. So this is one of the most fulfilling jobs it is the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my life. And I can't talk about that. But so to leave you with something as far as, this is one of my favorite quotes, especially because I like working with mature women who are often looking at that second or third act in life. And it's by Louis L'Amour. There will come a time when you believe everything is finished. That will be the beginning. Oh, I love that.
That's a great quote. That's a powerful quote too, and that's definitely something that we all need to think about. If you could also leave your website in terms of like how folks can reach you if they're interested in learning more about your life coaching and things of that nature. I'm sure that folks that are watching in, as my friend Brian calls it, team replay, will be interested in knowing how they can learn about getting in touch with you and hopefully picking up some new clients and definitely some folks that might be able to use your services.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Sure. My website, my business name is It's About Time Baby. So my website is itsaboutttimebaby.com. And I think probably the best way to connect with me on a more personal level would either be, I think, honestly, my Facebook group. If you go to Facebook and look for the Confident Women's Community, I hang out in there all the time. I'm always doing live video trainings around intuitive eating, intuitive movement, different ways to build up your confidence. Because as I said earlier, if you're a people pleaser, you're not very confident in yourself. So I work in there a lot, and it's really been what I've been focusing a lot of my energy in lately. So those would be the two places to find me.
Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, if you've got any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience, I'm sure they would love to hear them. But I've loved hearing your conversation, learning more about you, learning more about the great things that you're doing and continuing to do. And I think that you'll be doing it for a while and having tremendous amounts of success with them. But definitely, if there's any final thoughts that you want to share, this is the time to give those final thoughts, anything that you think we might have missed in this conversation, but anything that you would like to share with our audience at this time. And then I'll let you get to your appointment that you've got later on.
I think I'll just go back to I hope everyone that's watching this knows that you are loved beyond measure and that you are worth whatever it is that you want to do, be, or have in your life. And don't let anyone tell you differently. It's like, go after your dreams, because that's what it's all about. And I wish you all much love and happiness.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you were able to join us, Julie. And I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully having you come back on in the near future. One of the things I always tell my guests is that there are always welcome to come back, and definitely always glad to have them come back on multiple times. So anytime that you feel like coming back, you are always welcome. And I'll also put you in touch with some of my other friends, both here on the international broadcast media as well as on other platforms that might be interested in having you on their
Oh,
shows as well. So
I
always
very
glad
much
to
appreciate
connect with
that.
great and positive people.
Thanks, Mark. You have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.
All right, you do the same.
All right, bye.
So that was Miss giving some great and powerful information, some great encouraging words, and all of that. So I think that we definitely learned a lot about some positivity that is very much needed in this time of our society and all of that. So I was glad to have her on and to her to share a little bit about what she's got going on in her world and all of that. So it was definitely some very positive thoughts that were shared and all of. I was glad to have her with us and to have her share her conversation about things that were going on in her world and all of that. So definitely keep that in mind. I might pull up some of the other things I was going to do earlier in terms of some other things that are happening in our society and seeing if we're going to have any other guests that may show up and surprise us as well. Always love having amazing guests on this show as well as on the other two shows that I do on Mondays as well. So, we got Mullins Music and Memories coming your way in the very near future. As a matter of fact, that'll be coming up at the 4 o'clock hour. So, in about half an hour from now, we'll be having Mullins Music and Memories, and we'll have some conversation there as well. So, just keep that in mind that that is one of the other things that we'll be having going on here as well. So, like I said, I know a lot of folks are paying attention to a number of things that are happening in their world and the things that they might be interested in also. So we do have a number of folks that are paying attention to the things that are going on in the world and having some great conversations about a number of things that they are involved in. So glad to have these great and amazing guests. I do want to thank Potted for helping me connect with a lot of these newer guests that we've been having uh, over the course of these weeks and everything. So if you're not familiar with them, go check out potted.net. It's a great place if you're a podcaster or involved in this field in order for you to find some truly amazing guests. So, like I said, want to give them a shout out, just like we give our StreamYard a shout out for providing the platform to do these interviews and all of that. So, definitely always glad to have some amazing folks that are part of our team, and Potted is now part of this team as well. So, definitely glad to have Potted with us in terms of finding some great guests and all of that. So definitely keep that in mind as I get ready to bring up some of the news stories that I had heard about as well and see what folks have got to say. And if anybody's going to pop in and share their thoughts about things that they've got going on also. By the way, like I just mentioned to Miss Julie and everything. Today is International Women's Day, so definitely always great to have folks that are being celebrated. And of course, there have been some amazing women that have been a part of my life, whether that's my mother, whether that's both of my grandparents, my aunts, and of course, a number of great friends as well that are doing some very innovative things as well. As a matter of fact, I just recently realized that the person that invented laser eye surgery was a woman and all of that. So I saw that as something that was put down recently and all of that. So that's something that I saw recently that caught my attention, that the person that invented laser eye surgery was a lady. And I'll see if I can't find her name and put that in an upcoming edition of this show and all of that. By the way, it looks like Burger King UK set social media on fire morning when it tweeted, "Women belong in the kitchen." The tweet was part of an ad campaign aiming to bring awareness to a lack of female chefs and announcing a scholarship program to help female Burger King employers pursue their culinary dreams. The brand also ran a print ad in the New York Times, which laid out the scholarship program. The timing of the tweet set off alarms. As I just said, today is International Women's Day. It's a treacherous time for brands that are eager to jump on cultural moments, but may not always hit the right note. So, like I said, while they were trying to do it in a certain kind of way and everything, that was not the way to address this day of history and everything. So definitely folks were not taking it the way that I think that they intended it to be taken, and all of that. As it appears that they were recognizing that there are not enough women chefs even in their own departments and all of that. But definitely that is not the kind of ad that you want to run at this particular day. And I can definitely find that got all kinds of ire from a lot of our community and all of that. So I can definitely understand why people would be upset and not pleased that that happened. And also, apparently, Zoom towns are reshaping our nature. You may ask him, what is a Zoom town? The remote work revolution created by the pandemic is inadvertently altering the nation's urban geography, the Wall Street Journal has written. Cities once considered afterthoughts for ambitious workers are competing with coastal hubs for elite talent. So workers tethered by the office and seeking more space are turning towns like Gilbert, Arizona, Boulder, Colorado, Bentonville, Arkansas, and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a host of rural communities into veritable Zoom towns, with numerous companies now permitting permanent remote work. Regional outposts are competing fiercely to attract new arrivals. The implications could be massive for the nation's economic geography. So definitely when we say more and more people move into these kind of towns and all of that. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what goes on in that regard. So definitely it does look like we're seeing different kinds of things happening within our communities and all of that. So definitely that's one of the stories that I saw that might have been of interest to folks. So definitely was passing that on to y'all so that y'all could learn more about these Zoom towns that are out there as well. So keep that in mind that there are various Zoom towns out there, and these are towns that are smaller in nature, but they can do the remote work, so they're picking up in terms of people that are moving to these places and all of that. So definitely saw that article and thought that y'all might be interested in that as well. So just a lot of different things that are going on in our society that folks may be interested in. And one of the things I know folks may also be interested in is some of the things that are going on in our society and all of that. So that being said, I'm going to see about some of our shows that air here and let y'all check out some of them and what they're all about. One of them, of course, is my good friends with Talking Upstream.
My name's Brandon. I'm a world traveler, foodie, and YouTuber. Together, you and I will find the best travel hacks, tips, and best places to explore. Join me as we find new adventures together, live only on IBM.tv.
Yes, and we got all kinds of amazing things happening, including Chess Stars. That was that show that was airing right there, and definitely some great things going on with my man Sasha. And of course, he's having some great competitions that he's been airing recently. I was checking out a couple of them, and they were truly amazing. Checking out what they were all about and what they were having going on. So definitely, Sasha is a truly amazing competitor and a teacher of chess. So definitely was glad to see that going on. And don't forget that, a number of tournaments are going on with basketball. So there's going to be some winners and some automatic people getting their tickets punched. I believe Liberty got their ticket punched recently. And I'm trying to see about talking our fine folks here at IBM TV into doing something with the basketball and with the basketball pool. So we'll see if that happens or doesn't happen. But do know that I'm trying to to see about getting that to happen on this end and all of that. So we'll see if we're able to pull this off or how this all transpires or if it transpires. But I'm trying to make that happen in the very near future. So trying to see if we can't get that to happen. And I think folks will thoroughly enjoy it if we're able to do that. But right now, I'm going to let y'all check out a good friend of mine and a thing that she's got going on with her book and all. So let's check out what Veronica's got going on with her book.
Hello, my name is Natural Breeden, and I'm introducing a new author and her publication. Dr. Veronica Hardy is an inspirational speaker, author, and educator. Through her writing and public speaking, she uses the power of story to reveal and confront challenges experienced by the readers and listeners. And this is showcased through her book, A Letter to My Sisters, Reflecting on God's Promises. Dr. Hardy, what influenced the title of your book?
I can say, now I did change the title a few times. It went from, I think I started with calling it Tamar's View to capture more from her perspective. Mm-hmm. Then I switched it to Everybody Has Their Stuff. You know, we all carry something. Yes. And then finally I decided to pray. You know, God, what do you really want people to receive or know from this book? Mm-hmm. And so that's when A Letter to My Sisters, Reflecting on God's Promises, really came to me, because I felt it was really fitting that I was writing something for other women to read from my heart to theirs.
Oh,
thank you.
Now, Dr. Hardy, why did you choose the story about Tamar as the basis of the book?
I feel like oftentimes we don't talk much about the women in the Bible who have gone through difficulties, mm-hmm. such as her. She was raped or sexually assaulted by her half-brother. Okay, and I just thought that was an important story to be able to bring out. And I thought it was important to kind of bring out her story, how she responded to it, so we could also look at how we respond to it as well.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Hardy, how does the story of Tamar serve as an example for you?
I would say strength, for one. It seems like she didn't hide it at all. And I think sometimes if someone were to ask us, we want to cover it. We don't want to share it. Why? Mm-hmm. Because we're carrying the shame, or we feel like we're guilty that we caused the situation to happen to us. Mm-hmm. So I was glad she was able to share it with her brother, acknowledge it, and then he said to her, don't take it to heart. Mm-hmm. And that message spoke to me that we don't have to carry what someone else did to us. We don't have to make that become part of our identity, but for us to remember who we are, because she was a princess. Okay? And that's not taken away because of what someone else did to her. And I just wanted us as women to remember who we are in God's eyes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
I guess I have really been looking for love in this dating app. Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
What's the coolest thing about your job?
Engineers take the very best of science and technology and solve problems.
Did you know all that stuff when you were my age?
All I knew is that I really liked math and I really liked science.
Hello, and welcome to the North Star Initiative. I'm Glendola Massenberg Beasley, and in this time of COVID, the North Star Initiative serves as an accelerator to promote, support, and secure funding for small, rural, and urban businesses. Our team is here to assist you with overcoming cash flow obstacles. Let's listen to Dr. Dennis Rogers as he interviews 3 local business owners as they share their experiences during these uncertain times.
My name is Dr. Dennis Rogers, and I'm being joined today by Dr. Tanya Armstrong. Welcome, Dr. Armstrong. Tell us a little bit about your business, Dr. Armstrong.
Absolutely. I am the owner of the Armstrong Center for Hope. It is an interdisciplinary practice of psychology where we specialize in psychological and spiritual wellness for all ages. We have a main office in Durham that has been functional for 10 years this month, actually. And we also opened a second office in Raleigh in the fall of 2019. And so we've been providing individual, family, couple, and group psychotherapies, as well as psychological testing, consultations, and trainings to the public.
Excellent. Your clients, Maxwell, who do you do business with, and how does that interaction take place?
The majority of my business now, because it has changed, is farmers, commercial landscapers, landowners, people that are looking to maintain their equipment, to maintain their land.
Yes.
And then we still have a good number of residential customers with the lawnmowers and things like that to take care of their property, but mainly we're doing larger equipment now. The biggest thing to help someone in any trade or any craft is to treat the one person the same as you would the next one coming through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they figure out that you're fair and that you're going to charge them fairly, you're going to charge Joe over here the same as John,
Mm-hmm.
they'll come to you.
Right.
But if they think you give him a break, and he's going to go out there and tell everybody else, hey, he cut me a break, that kind of thing, then all of a sudden you've just opened up a can of worms,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to cut everybody a break.
We are a live entertainment company, and that's something that we pride ourselves on. And the experience, that face-to-face experience where you can actually feel the electricity and the spirit of the music bouncing off of the people in the audience, that's what's really important to us. So while we are looking at ways to incorporate streaming, what we really want to do is be patient and wait for the opportunity for us to gather, because healing is, music is healing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unifying. And so I think it'll be important for us when it's safer to gather and to really heal as a community and as a nation with some live music. And one thing that we love to do is contract and subcontract, like I said, with small businesses who have just as much on the line as we do as a small business. So looking back at the festival and at our concerts, we make sure that we contract with transportation companies, with catering businesses, with marketing agencies that are small businesses and that are minority-owned businesses, so that everyone is getting a piece of this pie. Everyone is going for their own success. And in the end, because we all have a shared outcome, everyone's working hard to make it come to fruition.
Excellent.
Great job, Dr. Rogers. So business owners, if you're seeking a grant or business funding, our North Star Initiative offers a no-cost assessment for funding opportunities. Contact us via our website at www.gmbeasley.com. Your business could be featured with our next North Star promotion.
Producers, directors, I met designers, and then everybody says, oh, this is my sixth year, and oh, this is my fourth year.
Shout out to New York. We're in New York in like 7 hours.
Oh my gosh, yes, we have a 6:58 flight, so.
We gotta go home. We gotta go.
We gotta go.
Let me tell you something. Every single person that's come through the store has spoke so highly of you, and what a great event this is. Yes.
I'm representing DJ Darryl, who is a platinum producer. He did the hit track for Tupac Shakur, Keep Your Head Up, Snoop Dogg, Keisha Cole.
Well, that's about to wrap up another edition of the radio show with Mark Lee. Definitely want to thank Ms. Scott for coming and her story about her life coaching and all of that. It was truly amazing having that conversation with her, and I look forward to having more conversations with her in the not too distant future. Because definitely we'll be inviting her back to come on some more shows and to share her wisdom and all of that. But definitely was thoroughly enjoying what she had to share with us on this time, the initial time of her being here on this particular platform and all of that. So definitely was great hearing her conversation and hearing what she had to say about a number of things that are going on in her world, and a lot of things that were inspirations with her, and even some things that she's done in her own growth and all of that. So it was great having that conversation with her. And like I said, look forward to having more conversations with her in the not too distant future. So definitely was great having her conversation, learning more about what she's all about, and definitely looking forward to having more amazing guests on the radio show, as well as on the other shows that air right here on the international broadcast media. By the way, on a sadder note, I am seeing a story that is reporting that homelessness is actually soaring nationwide, even as cities nationwide have tackled the soaring rates of homelessness that have plagued most U.S. metropolitans with renewed vigor amid the pandemic. The problem is only getting worse, Axios writes. Frustrations have grown among residents as homeless encampments have grown in size and scale. Many cities are now leaning on untested tactics to confront the crisis. Denver, for instance, is pondering the use of safe parking sites to allow a sanctioned place for people to sleep in their car. Officials in Minneapolis constructed a tiny house village inside a downtown warehouse to house 100 people, and Charlotte, that's right here in North Carolina, has offered 210 people living in a tent city 3 months vouchers to relocate to area hotels. And I know they were doing some of that relocation stuff even here in Durham as well. New York commuters are alarmed by visibly worse substance abuse and mental illness within the homeless population in city train stations, CBS News writes. The issue curtails remote workers returning to offices as many riders don't feel safe. So definitely is impacting a number of things in our society, and a lot of that with the fact that there are definitely a lot of folks that are still trying to work. They might be either unemployed or underemployed. And of course, we've also got to tackle the whole issue of things that are going on in terms of mental health and all of that as well. So definitely these are some difficult times. We're still with the pandemic, even though it's not being talked as much as it had been in the parts of last year. We are still dealing with some of the racial crisis and some of the things that are going on in the sense of over policing and things along those lines. And of course, there are a number of other concerns that people are concerned about as well. And of course, one of those is the whole issue of what's going on with our homeless and all of that. So definitely let's keep them in our thoughts, as well as a number of other issues that are going on in our society. But right now, I'm going to wrap everything up. Of course, I'm going to bring up the ambassador probably, as well as that plane to get us on out of here. And who knows, I might even bring out the image of the.
और ऐसे अपने खांसी जब आएगी तो ऐसे करेंगे अच्छू अच्छू और कोरोना वायरस को धन्यवाद हमारा म्यूजिक सुनने का.
What's the coolest thing about your job?
Engineers take the very best of science and technology and solve problems.
Did you know all that stuff when you were my age?
All I knew is that I really liked math and I really liked science.
Like I said, there's a lot of things that are going on in the world and everything. So definitely trying to get us to the 2-hour mark, since I definitely like to do that when I can and all of that. So I think I'm going to bring up another one of these other spots also of a good friend of mine who's got an amazing product. So let's check out what
it's Fran Harris, founder of Electra Sports Beverages. So excited that you are joining me right now for this live broadcast where I am finally launching my sports beverage. Now, Electra is a better for you functional beverage company that other things will come after. in a few years. But right now we are launching one of the best, better for you, in fact, best for you sports drinks on the planet. Now, a lot of people will say, why would you start a beverage company when you've got other competitors, huge competitors in the marketplace in this space? Well, it's a $23 billion industry. Sports drinks, $23 billion opportunity. That means there's room to play. The reality is, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. So I'm very proud of Electra. Very proud of what Electra stands for. I'm very proud of this nutritional panel back here because we didn't miss a beat. We knew that consumers were looking for better taste, higher functionality, lower sugar, fewer calories. We knew that. And I am so proud of what we have put in this bottle. It's something that you can give your kids. It's something that you can drink yourself, whether you're an elite athlete or an everyday hustler. We put some great stuff in this bottle, and I want to invite you to join me on this journey for this big online launch party. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of room to play. I'm going to get in where I fit in. I'm going to find my niche and make sure that we develop and produce products that are absolutely amazing that our customers want. So I wanted to introduce you to Electra here. So we got 3 flavors. You've got Passion Punch, you got Oh Yeah Orange, and you got Liddy Lemonade. And so whatever your pleasure is, if you like the punch taste, if you like the orange taste, if you like the Liddy Lemonade, then you can have your pleasure, all right? But I want you to get in on this because we're doing something special with Electra right now. We're launching it first time out of the gate. That means that you can get it right now at a very special price if you participate in my Indiegogo campaign. Now let's talk about what an Indiegogo campaign is. This is not a fundraiser. This is an opportunity to generate some buzz and some fun around the launch of a brand new product. And you get the opportunity to get things like t-shirts, come to some private events. It's an opportunity for you to be a part of something bigger than all of us, right? Imagine if you had been there when that other sports drink had started 50 years ago. Imagine what it would have felt like to be a part of what you knew was going to be history. That's what I'm offering you the opportunity to do right now, is to be a part of Electra's launch to the public. Now, Electra will be available online, so you'll be able to go to our website and our store and buy Electra, but you won't be able to get access to some of the prizes that you're going to get access to by participating in this campaign. And there are many, many levels that you can get involved in. You can get involved at a very low level where you just want to be a supporter. You can get involved at a different level where you get a t-shirt and a cap. You can get involved in a different level where you can come to a VIP event with me, hang out with me and my team. Either way, get in where you fit in and just become a part of this historic launch. There should be a button on this page right now. All you need to do, click that button, and then you can learn all about the different ways that you can be involved in this particular launch campaign. All right, click the button right now. I appreciate your support so much, and I will see you on the other side.